Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 5 of Classroom Management and Behavioral Analysis. As you can tell, I have my voice back. It's not back 100%, so you will hear some crackling and maybe some coughing. So I apologize ahead of time. So, some reminders for this week, going back to the same reminders that we had about the grades from our week 3 modules. When you receive the certificate, please upload it, but also email me to let me know that you've uploaded it so that I can give you credit for those assignments, well, for that assignment. Also, remember that you're awesome no matter what your situation is or what you're going through. You are awesome and you are an overcomer. And also, please watch weekly updates and check email because I will say something in the weekly update and then get an email about it from about 5 people about the exact same thing that I mentioned. So I just want to make sure that you do watch the videos to get your information. Some reflections I wanted to do this week. This is something a little different. I wanted to go through the posts that we had and find some different quotes that stood out to me and I wanted to quickly speak on. And so from week 3, I believe I chose about 3 quotes. And week 4, I chose one from each theorist that we spoke about and philosopher. So, a quote from week 3 on trauma. I think you have to teach in our own way for the entire class and find those moments to help those students who are affected by trauma cope. We cannot teach each student individually and must find a balance between the needs of the individual, the class, and how it relates to their home life as well. And so I will tell you, as an educator, you do have to be very flexible. That student or students in your classroom who are going through trauma and are having some challenges, because a lot of times that pain will manifest itself through the behaviors in your classroom. It is trying to find a balance. You don't want to neglect the education because you will have some kids say, oh, we never get to do this because of such and such doing, having this reaction. And so it's a part of what I've had to do in the past was teach my students how to have a balance of and understand the feelings of the student who was having the behaviors. And so we came up with some different signals in the classroom. I had one student who was going through separation from his mom who had been sent to jail. He was living with his grandparents, and there were points during the day that he did not want anybody to talk to him, but he didn't know how to verbalize it. And I gave him a cone. I told him, whenever this cone is out on your desk, we know not to come to you to ask you a question or anything. And when you're ready, you'll remove the cone. And so that was a something that we all agreed on in the classroom. It was something I even implemented with my small groups. If I had my light on my desk, they knew not to come back. And so it was something that everyone respected for each other. The next quote from week 3 was, being compassionate due to trauma does not mean a free pass for that student. And then it doesn't. It doesn't mean that, oh, because this child is going through this, I need to excuse them. Because during that trauma, they have to learn how to cope. And in order for them to learn how to cope, we have to teach them how to cope with those feelings. And so I always tell students, it's okay for you to be mad. It's even okay for you to cry, but it's not okay for you to throw a chair. It's not okay for you to throw an object, and it's not okay for you to cuss me out. How can we deal with these emotions? What are some other ways? And so just thinking about that, but also giving them the okay to be mad, because a lot of times they don't know that it's okay and they don't know how to deal with it. And so giving them other outlets to push that anger out with and that frustration out with will help with that. Another from week 3, not all students react the same way. What one child responds to does not mean the next child will respond the same way. It is really important to know your students and know what it might take time and error after error before you can find the right behavior management system for certain students. And this is very, very true. It, I mean, it baffles me how I see people, even within teaching, pull out the exact same lessons, the lesson plans from year to year, thinking that the kids are going to respond the same way. And it goes back to knowing your kids and having a relationship with them. What works best for this group of kids, or for this student? What will work best for them? And what we have to remember is that what I think what I've expressed to my students before, and I want to make sure I get this right, is what is fair for one child may not be, it's not always going to be equal for everybody. And so because this, again, may work for this group of students or for this child, it's not going to work for another child. And so those are just things to take into consideration. I know for my mom, she would discipline us differently. She knew that I did not like, sorry for the pop-ups, but she knew that I didn't like to be outside. I hated going outside. And so she would have me sit on the porch and read a book, and then have my sister sit in the kitchen because she could go outside 24/7. But again, she did it because she knew that she had to discipline us differently because our likes were different. So I always thought that was funny. Great. Week 4 reflections. One quote that I saw was very long, so I apologize, but I thought all of it was interesting. This is about the Wongs. However, the expectations are not just for students, but the educators as well. And I think I could have just stopped this one right there, because that is so true. This included structure, order, and procedure of how each day will go, allowing the students to understand what he or she can expect each day. I plan to incorporate the structure into my classroom. I believe students function better when they know what to expect and vice versa. It is especially critical for students with trauma, anxiety, and other diagnoses or histories to have structure in her or his day. I wish I could just put this on a wall somewhere to let everybody read it, because kids yearn for structure, especially when they have confusion at home. And one thing that I would always promise my students was, I can't control what's happening at home. But what I can control as your educator, as the person who cares about you and loves you here at school, is what happens in this classroom. And so I would promise them that every day, no matter what, they knew that this was a place that they were loved, that they were cared about. They knew what would happen every single day because it was known, it was posted somewhere, and we also talked about it. But kids who are going through trauma, they yearn for structure and stability. And you have you have that responsibility to make sure that they have a stable environment. And again, we can't control what's happening at home, but we can make sure that our environment that we have for them in the classroom is a stable environment. And that goes into your lesson planning. That goes into making sure that you're prepared for that day. Because the worst thing that can happen is going in front of a classroom and telling the kids, oh, wait a minute, I got to find this paper. Oh, I got to find this paper. I don't know where this is. They're going to look at us like we're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and we don't want that. But again, it's our responsibility to provide our kids with structure and also stability. Saganti. Saganti is someone that everybody always gets upset with. But when I read this quote, this is what I'm always reminded of when I read about Saganti. A group of our students have consistently been counting down the clock during the last 30 seconds of class extremely loud and rambunctiously. Empty threats have not worked for days. One mention of a 10-minute detention after school just before the 30-second countdown, and you couldn't hear a thing. You could see the wheels spinning, and nobody wanted to risk it. We will have to wait and see if this proves effective over the long term. And so, Saganti is someone that I will say, he's not on top of my list when it comes to things, but there are several places that Saganti's beliefs and philosophy is needed. And in this particular situation, this was a perfect example to share, and shows us kids will test you. They know their limits. They know that there are things that we are not able to do um, within the school environment. And so when they know that, and I always tell the kids, if you're going to take 10 minutes of our learning time, you're telling me that you want to give me 10 minutes of something else. And let them know that they have the power. And so you gave them that power of making a better choice. And guess what? They fell through. So I would look forward to hearing to see if this continued to work for you. Reflections for Morris. I probably will not read all of this. I'm going to try to find the point that stood out to me. This one sentence right here. Let me move the mouse. I think it is important to use this model because oftentimes I see teachers assuming students should already know. The reason I would use this is because what I consider right and wrong may not be the case for the student with a previous teacher. Again, if I could hang it up in a classroom, in every classroom, I really would. A lot of times we have expectations, we have our rules for our students, but we have this expectation, they already know the expectation. We have this expectation of kids knowing how to already walk in the hallway. And so instead of having that expectation, a lot of times we have to present it as a lesson. Oh, you don't know how to walk in the hallway? Let me show you. And you have them do it a few times and you practice and you give them words of encouragement. And so don't always assume that kids who are coming from home and just because, oh, you're in second grade, you should know better. That is not the case because expectations that you may have, again, may not be the same as the teachers before, or even in some cases, the parents that they go to every day. All right, get to the nitty gritty. Week 5 learning outcomes. After completing the assigned learning activities this week, you should be able to summarize and analyze the following systems of classroom management discipline. And that's for Jones, Glaser, Marshall, and also Kagan. These are some videos you need to watch here. Long list, I know. Also, make sure you read chapters 8 through 11 in the Charles text. There are PowerPoints for you to review for each chapter to assist with that. Your assignment for this week is basically with the Go React. I know a lot of you stated when you were recording for your teacher interviews how uncomfortable you felt. Please do not feel uncomfortable. You all did a wonderful job with those videos and sharing your experience with that. But what you're going to basically do is do a presentation again on Go React. Make sure that you look over the rubric that's attached with this assignment. You are expected to comment on at least 2 of your classmates during their video. And so as they're speaking, you're able to actually, as you're watching the videos, you're able to click in, make a comment at that point in time. And that's recorded when you make your comment on the video. And I'm able to go back in and see everybody's comments in the post. If you choose to do a PowerPoint, please make sure you convert it to a PDF and then upload it to record your video. And it's not required, but I know for me, it makes things easier for me to flow. So whatever works for you. Also for our 4 or 5 assignment, you're going to use the template below. Begin to work on a combined weeks 4 and 5 assignment. This assignment will be submitted again this week. And it is working with a discipline model matrix. Just make sure you go through, read the instructions. Please include a title page and make sure that is APA format. And this is your assignment rubric. So week 5 devotion. It is something how you can read a book over and over and over. And different things about it really hit home for you. And so this week I struggled with, okay, what should we share? And this book came to mind because while you're watching the video, you're able to click on this link here to go to a video. But when you're watching the video, what I want you to reflect on is, how did the actions of the teacher affect the actions of the student? And after you give your response to yourself, if you want to reply to this post, you can, to share. I want you to just even think about with your walk with Christ. How do your actions affect the response of others?